My name is Yasmina Mrabet, and I'm here with Dr. Alma Jadallah, a President and Managing Director of Kommon Denominator, and part-time faculty and advisory board member at George Mason University's School for Conflict Analysis and Resolution. In commemoration and remembrance of 9/11, we would like to share with you the findings of a follow-up research study on the impact of 9/11 on conflict resolvers. Alma, can you tell us about the original research you did on this subject in 2006?
I'd like to share with you some of the findings of my research in 2006. My questions were quite consistent with the 53 respondents, and here is a summary of what they told us. For example, the majority of them said that they had to revisit their working assumptions in their practice post 9/11. Many of them raised the issue of neutrality and how they felt about the incident and how it impacted how they felt about the topic of neutrality. A lot of them also raised the issue of how they felt unable to influence the outcome given the multiplicity of parties that were involved with such a critical event. And they did acknowledge that they had to play multiple roles. Many of them confirmed that they were committed to issues of social justice, their own personal values, and the empowerment of the parties. And they were very surprised that, especially the group that I met with that was very close to the towers that were destroyed, particularly there in New York, they said they were very surprised that their services were not understood and that they were not looked at as first responders to the event. Also, many acknowledged that culture is a variable that they had to learn more about, and they felt ill-equipped to deal with the issues of trauma, and that terrorism started receiving more attention, particularly when writing grants for funding and future research, and also their lack of readiness to deal with such a critical event with this magnitude.
On the 10-year anniversary of 9/11, myself and Maya Jesperson, with your invitation, collaborated to do a follow-up study on the original research that you did in 2006. Can you give a summary of the findings?
Yes, we were pleasantly surprised, as you know, to find that it confirmed most of the reports that we had from our respondents that I just covered a few minutes ago. But there were some additional findings that we were pleased with. For example, many of the new respondents in 2011 said that they were concerned around the use of the word terrorist and terrorism that is showing up in the conflict resolution practice. They also rejected the use of the term neutrality, which is a big thing in our field, because when you read the literature in the past, the issue of neutrality has been discussed, I can't tell you how many times. And so part of the new finding is they said we really needed to move from that terminology into something different. For example, using the word disinterested, making sure that all the voices are being heard. And so I think that's a major development in the new findings. We also realized that you can't have just a science and a field of practice without how do you market that, to use from the business school, the terminology. And so they all said that they feel that we really need to think how to market the field, how to sell it to others, how to make it not just accessible, but more understood by other people. They also highlighted a lot about the interfaith efforts or faith-based initiatives. And they were very concerned about the inflammatory religious rhetoric and the promotion of stereotypes and misguided labeling of certain groups. And so I think we have seen a bit of movement, not just confirming the initial findings, but adding those new ones.
And what would you say is the significance of this follow-up study, and what were some of the limitations?
The significance of the study, of course, it increases our awareness around issues of practice. We are able now to speak more of practice and how people are applying the science of conflict resolution. It should also contribute to the body of knowledge that is already out there. In my mind, too, I have used a lot of my doctoral research, and I hope others will do, in the field of training and education, because it can help you prepare as you're, for example, in transferring the knowledge and processes like dialogue, problem-solving workshops, and all of the methodologies that we have. if you use this research, you can better prepare in how you train and you educate and what areas you can focus on. It might also help us with the types of tools that we need to reassess and the types of skills that we need to actually conduct practice in the field. And it provided us new insights on the multiplicity of roles that we have to play, and actually revisit our own role and how we understand ourselves. So we're not really neutral anymore according to the research that we have looked into. So that means we have to revisit our assumptions and the kinds of roles around impartiality and neutrality. And finally, how do we prepare future practitioners? You know, at the School for Conflict Analysis and Resolution and many other institutions that are teaching in the field, it would really require that they rethink, and it might inform the curricula that is being developed in relation to that. Now, you asked me in terms of limitations. The limitations is always a challenge in terms of the sample that we use. The issue of time, the period of time we conducted the questionnaire may have an influence. And also, we did not factor in race, gender, and ethnicity. The initial research, I asked the practitioners to self-define, and we did not include these variables to see if there is any differences, whether people came from a different ethnic group, how their age might influence, whether gender would be a variable that might impact their responses. And then we were the instrument of inquiry. Of course, there is some relevance to the bias that might come out of our own form of inquiry. And we relied mostly on the spoken word and nonverbal. We did not include at all the nonverbal inputs on this.
The findings also tell us that there are many areas in need of future research. What are some of the most important areas in your view?
Yeah, I would like, since I did this research post 9/11, we had many incidents happen around the world, even in the US. We had Katrina, we have critical events happening now, for example, related to the Arab Spring. And so I think future research dealing with the impact of critical events on the role of practice would be very important to follow up, whether it's natural or man-made created incidents, events like 9/11. Also, how do we prepare others and other disciplines to kind of partner with us? For example, we touched on the issue of trauma, as you know, and its impact on how conflict resolution practitioners, if they do not understand trauma, for example, with the ongoing wars in Afghanistan and all over the world, what do we do with people who are suffering from trauma, and how do we work with them? And so it underscored, I believe, and future research should underscore that we need to partner with other disciplines to better understand and to better prepare for workshops for all the methodologies that we use. We also need to rethink future research might be interested in the identity of the practitioners and how it might impact what we do and how we do it, and how their membership within the field may bias or actually contribute to the understanding of future practice. And finally, as we mentioned earlier, this is a highly qualitative study, reliant on the spoken word. So quantitative instruments may be used, or a survey may follow with some of those practitioners. So hopefully we can do another follow-up annually and see if we can do that.
Thank you for your summary of both the original and follow-up study research. And we also want to thank the practitioners who took part in the follow-up research, and the Burton Library and the School for Conflict Analysis and Resolution for helping us produce this video.